Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. Our special guest today is Ed Holloway, who is a former state representative here in Kentucky. And we're just going to go over some of the breaking news stories that are kind of unbelievable. But before we do that, we want to mention this meeting that's coming up with the American Family Association on Saturday, June 1st. It's free hot dog lunch for everybody. It's going to be at 12:45 and is the meeting, and 12 noon is the lunch. So we'd like to invite everybody to come Saturday, June 1st, 12 noon for lunch. And then we're going to be showing videos and giving away videos. And it's going to be at Grace Fellowship Church of Louisville, 2114 Peniel Road in Louisville, 40299. That's in Fairdale area. If you want more details, just call 893-2444 and we'll get you a flyer and give you more information on that. And Ed, you know, there's so much going on here, it's hard to know where to start. This is kind of a summary from Gary Bauer. The front page of today's Boston Herald reads, Obamagate. Another headline declares scandals involve comparison to Nixon. And I guess a lot of that is dealing with the growing IRS scandal.
Well, the IRS scandal is, I think, one of the most significant things that developed out of this administration. It started in 2010, and it began with all of the patriotic organizations, the organized religion, the churches have been involved, and those were prevented through two election cycles, the 2010 cycle and the 2014 presidential reelection. They were prohibited not by anything direct, but by just failing to give them any clearance or any answers to any of the questions that have been raised, so they were taken completely out of the loop. It's come into the recent thing because of the number of organizations that have complained, and the media and others have begun to pick it up, and members of Congress have demanded. And the classic example was the lady who made the testimony, who she was in charge of everything in Cincinnati and the whole area involving tax-exempt organizations, and she invoked the Fifth and refused to testify at all, although she went ahead and said that she wasn't guilty of anything. And the only time that's ever used is in a criminal investigation. A person cannot incriminate themselves, so they can plead the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. So those are the classic things that have been going on. But the problem is that you effectively shut down all of your opposition by using these techniques, and in that process, nothing that these organizations were able to do to influence it. It began with their agenda that the Tea Party and others had been effective, and in order to shut them down, and the same thing with some of the churches and other organizations, religious organizations, were equally stopped, and it's as though they didn't say, no, you can't have an exemption. You were just a complete stonewall of any information at all about that. So this is an ongoing thing, and it's still unraveling, and we'll know more as time goes on.
Do you think it'd be fair to say that they discriminated against the pro-American organization?
Absolutely, absolutely, because they're not part of the agenda.
Yeah. Then, of course, Benghazi is getting more and more of a scandal.
Yeah.
it just seems like there's one scandal after another. Well, now this is the other thing that came in our email today, and that's these apparent Muslims, terrorists that murder the soldier right in the middle of London at broad daylight.
He was near his barracks, and these are two individuals who are citizens of the Great Britain, but they're Nigerian, and they're part of that radical group that is in a revolution in Nigeria, and they were demonstrating the same techniques that they were using down there, and they beheaded and butchered this individual soldier as he came out of the base. They struck him down with an automobile first, and then began to literally butcher him. And that video that's available now on the internet and other things now shows this individual talking about why they did it and everything about it.
Everything was fine.
Standing there with a meat cleaver and a knife and blood all over his hands as he explained that this is what happens to, and he tells the people of England to rebel and throw out their government and install Islam.
Install Islam, yeah. And when they were chopping this man up, they yelled the Muslim war cry.
Allah Akbar.
Yeah,
Akbar.
which is just unbelievable.
Praise Allah.
The only reason we have killed this man today is because Muslims are dying daily by British soldiers. And this British soldier is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. By Allah, we swear by the Almighty Allah, we will never stop fighting you until you leave us alone. But we are forced by the Quran in Surah At-Tawbah, through many ayat throughout the Quran, that we must fight them as they fight us. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You people will never be safe. Remove your governments, they don't care about you. Do you think David Cameron is going to get caught in the street? When we start busting our guns, do you think your politicians are going to die? No, it's going to be the average guy like you and your children. So get rid of them. Tell them to bring our troops back so you can all live in peace. Leave our lands and you will live in peace. That's all I have to say. I mean, Allah's peace and blessings be upon Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Okay, let's see what else we get. News broke last night that Sarah Hall Ingram, commissioner who led the department at the center of the IRS scandal while the abuse was taking place, is now the director of the IRS Obamacare.
This is a critical part of what's going on. Because the Obamacare implementation is taking place and has to go into effect in 2015 and 16, and the necessary activities to make sure that happens taking place. And so, but you got in this group, throughout the whole administration, as individuals who all share the same philosophy, and they all relate back to the problems created back in the 60s and 70s, and they want to completely organize and change and direct America in a completely different direction from what it was formed for, the removal of a moral basis of anything.
You know, I saw a video by Chris Ann Hall, and she reviewed the different documents over the last 700 years in England that led up to the Magna Carta and all these different things. And each time she said, well, these kings and the tyrants, and I guess you could throw Hitler and Stalin in there too, there are 5 things that they all wanted.
Well, using Hitler as a classic example, the National Socialist Party of Germany was one that started out very similar. They were opposed to communism, they were opposed to this. He even got in an alliance with the organized labor, the unions, and told them that he was on their side. And once they took complete power, they completely abolished every one of the labor organizations. They took everything and got complete control, and the people in Germany were subjected to every kind of pressure that you can think of, very similar to what the IRS intimidations and all the rest of it is going on now.
Right,
and once the complete control is gained, then you've got, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, and they mentioned that this massacre of the soldier in London in broad daylight could never have happened if it wasn't a gun-free zone.
Exactly.
That there would have been someone with a weapon that would have stopped that murder
Right.
if it hadn't been that there were, no guns allowed. Here's another one. This is from Forbes magazine. It says the IRS raids 60 million personal medical records.
Right. Well, this is going to be a major part of Obamacare. There will be
Yeah.
no information of an individual of a private nature. Everything will be
See, that's what they
available.
want all the doctors to have, electronic medical records, so that the government can get in and find out anything they want about anybody.
And I spent time in Russia and talked to people about theirs, and they said, oh, yes, we have free medical coverage if you can get it.
Another scandal breaks, and President Obama is undeterred,
Yeah.
commits to 20 fundraisers. I guess they tried to get people that had donated money to
Exactly.
Mitt Romney.
And this was a major thing, and they've set up a major network of communications to target the individual groups that are supporting and others, and they've got a very elaborate system that has never existed before, but it targeted every one of their voters, and they got out the vote, and they didn't believe the Romney camp thought they were going to win all the way up till the votes started coming in.
It's just this illegal discrimination against anybody that disagrees with you, and our own government is the criminal.
But they've been pathetic, getting involved in the last, I'd say 50 years, but it's been very slow. It's been one thing at a time. The attack on the Catholic Church, for example,
Right.
of making them supply abortion pills
Yeah.
and other things against every principle of their religion. They're forcing the universities and others that are religious founded and based to conform to these rules that they've come out with, and abortion and all the other things that traditional groups have been opposed to
Yeah.
are now off the table. They're being forced to the government.
Here it says the military is telling troops to look out for extremists like evangelicals and Catholics.
Right.
I mean, they're not worried about the Muslim terrorists, but they're worried about
Right.
evangelicals and Catholics. Now that tells you something, doesn't it?
Exactly. And this is, again, another attack on religion.
Well, Obama doesn't like traditional Christian religion, I would say. Obama and the IRS, the smoking gun. Now, this is an article by Jeffrey Lord from the American Spectator, and it says the president met with anti-Tea Party IRS chief the day before the IRS targeted the Tea Party.
There's been as many as 118 meetings with the IRS union at the White House.
So they say that's the smoking gun that proves that Obama was involved in all of this.
And this, again, I can't emphasize enough that this goes back to 2010. This is
Yeah.
nothing new. This has been going on and actually intensified. And now when they're attacking the media, the Associated Press, and getting all of their emails and everything else, and totally
Yeah.
intimidating anybody that has any opposition to any of their agenda.
Well, Ed, that reminds me of this book.
Yes, this is a handbook that was printed in 1971, still available in bookstores throughout the country. You can order it, and it's the Rules for Radicals, and it's by Saul Alinsky. And Saul Alinsky, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, an article that was in their paper, said the Alinsky techniques and teachings influenced generation of community and labor organizations, including church-based group that hired a young Barack Obama to work in Chicago's South Side in the 80s. Alinsky impressed a young Hillary Clinton, who was growing up at Park Ridge at the time Alinsky was director of the foundation in Chicago. And they were both students and a lot of the others, and it's taught in in a lot of the universities.
Wow.
And they've changed the name over the years from socialist and radicals to now the primary one is progressive.
Progressive, yeah.
And Hillary keeps saying she's a progressive, and others that do the same thing.
Now, this is the best part I like about it. Lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement of the very first radical from all our legends and mythology and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer.
Right.
So it looks like Lewinsky kind of dedicated this book
Right.
to the devil.
Right. He in particular and others are atheistic, and they view organized religion as a threat and as a
Yeah.
roadblock to
Yeah.
the developments of what they intend and what they want the world to be.
Now, here's an article from the American Family Association, and it says the IRS officials have been unable to name one single progressive group that received such withering scrutiny.
Right. They're automatically rubber stamped and come right through. That's not a problem.
Here's some that they discriminated against: Dr. Dobson, Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, and the Coalition for Life in Iowa. So that just shows you how bad it gets.
Another aspect that they use is what I call character assassination. They can attack anybody that they feel is an enemy or somebody who
Yeah.
opposes their agenda, and they make, and it's almost like that old classic statement, do you still beat your wife? Yes,
Yeah.
yes or no? Yes or
Yeah.
no? You know, and they literally will destroy individuals.
Now, here they're saying that when the people in Benghazi asked for help, that the soldiers in the area were told to back down, stand down, and not help them.
Right.
Now, that's unbelievable. I'm sure there's some reason why they did that.
Well, the whole thing in Libya is an ongoing problem. You have two distinct groups. The one is in Tripoli and the other is Benghazi. And they were different tribes under the Arab rule on the Ottoman Empire, and that's not changed at all. Those people still feel the same way, but they have now taken alliance with the Al-Qaeda and the Brotherhood and all of those, and they're working to make sure. For example, they were at gunpoint, were able to pass a law saying that anyone who had served in the previous administration could not serve in any government capacity whatsoever, which opened it up to the only one left of the radicals that can fill those slots. So it's just an ongoing thing that time will show that they've completely taken over that country.
The Benghazi whistleblowers, they apparently didn't want to let them testify at first.
Exactly.
And then the whistleblowers realized that there was a lot of false information given out, and they insisted on being able to testify.
The State Department and others have the leadership is one thing, but there are a lot of dedicated, good Americans that are working in some of these agencies, and they're at a loss as to what to do and how to do it, and some of them have jeopardized their future, their pensions and everything else by coming forward.
Yeah.
Because their constitution in their mind is being violated, and as good Americans,
Yeah.
they had to come forward.
Here it says they were surprised that the State Department had more authority in the Obama administration than the military.
Exactly.
So here's some more. Let's see. This representative read an email from a State Department official sent the day after the attack to the Libya ambassador. The message encouraged him and other Libyan officials to make it clear that the attack was committed by Islamic extremists. See, so they They were trying to say this movie caused the whole
A
thing.
video that nobody had seen was the cause of all that, and had nothing to do with anything else. And it was absolutely false, and everybody else that were involved in that area knew the truth, and but they didn't have the ability to get on the media and tell everybody.
The Obama administration talking birds weren't accurate. After further questioning by Fox News Sunday host Chris Wallace, Representative Lynch admitted that the talking points were scrubbed and were totally inaccurate. So here again, they put out a sort of a false message and had that ambassador to the United Nations go on all the talk shows and put out this false information.
And their only response to that was Hillary's statement about what difference does it make.
Yeah, a jihadist can't be investigated just because he's a jihadist or terrorist. Reformist Muslims who understand the ideology of radical Islam and Sharia law are not to be used to educate federal officials. Okay, so this is a training for people that are going to protect us against terrorists, and they said, oh, you can't go into jihad.
Oh, well, you came because this is all part of that political correct.
Yeah.
And you don't want to offend
The terrorists.
And while all Muslims are not terrorists, all terrorists are Muslim. And this is where you have to make a distinction, and it's a very narrow path that you have to go down, and people are not being intimidated by saying anything against Islam.
Here is Courier Journal Metro article from the 22nd for the anti-discrimination rally
At the protest.
at the IRS downtown. And we also have more photographs that were taken down there.
And it was interesting that it's been reported that there was similar protests at IRS offices all over the country.
All over the country. Yeah, downtown there were about 100 people.
St. Petersburg, Florida, protesting the National Protest Day against the IRS.
Now, you know, I was going to say there are 5 things that the terrorists and the tyrants do. They always raise taxes.
Right.
They try to take the arms of the people. They try to take private property.
Right.
They try to take control of the churches,
Right.
like they're discriminating against the church now. Here it says that the Christian chaplains are not allowed to have Christian prayer in Jesus' name. So those are the main things. And of course, the last one is the courts.
Right.
They want to control the courts. And this is something that tyrants have done across hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's exactly what they're doing here in America today. And they're trying to take control of these 5 areas.
And the problem is that this has been going on in all recorded history. And it's only when the common people become aware and do something.
Now, here's another thing that's unbelievable about Biden and Obama telling the media that which SEALs had been involved in the
When they took out,
yeah,
bin Laden.
Bin Laden, yeah. So, and then they terrorists were able to shoot down several people in that SEAL Team 6.
Exactly.
And then they had the funeral for these American heroes in Afghanistan, and they had a Muslim come and pray at the Christian
Right.
funeral. And it says here that the Muslim was actually cursing the Americans during the funeral.
Well, this is another problem the military is facing, and it's so-called diversity. And they were being prohibited at every level, including the VA hospitals. And in the VA hospitals, they were told you can't bring in Bibles.
Yeah,
You can't have a priest give last rites to someone who is dying in that hospital. And these are the kind of things. Now, they've backed off from that a little. They've just delayed its implementation. But the chaplains are having to face the same problems. Every aspect of the military, some of the leaders are so frustrated and they don't know how to address the problem, and it's increasing leaps and bounds, and it's everything across. And again, this is a problem that the attack on organized religion is filtering down to the individual. And that thing with prayer in school, it goes back, and the removal of the Ten Commandments, all of these things have been going on slowly and deliberately and one at a time. And
All
it's
part of this, I would say.
It's all spelled out in the handbooks.
Yeah.
And it's available to anybody that wants to buy one and understand what they have been doing and how
Unbelievable.
they're doing it.
Now, Ed, we've got videos on this about agenda
Right.
and how the Hitler was voted into Austria, how the communists were voted into Romania. All of that is got on a documentary video.
Right.
And if you call us right now, 893-2444, we will send you that, and it's totally free. And the reason it's free is we are concerned about what's happening in our country, and we are willing to lose money on it just to get the word out, because we think it's a desperate situation. We got all of these problems, and the other thing is they'll let the Muslims pray in Allah's name, but they won't let the Christians pray in the name of Christ.
Right.
And here in the schools, they'll let them pray in Allah's name, but no Christian prayers in the public schools.
One of the things that we're involved in, and you're doing an excellent job on, is getting out this petition.
Oh, yes, we're
the
almost out of
schools.
town. Thank you for doing
And the petition is extremely important because 2 states have already had the legislature pass it, Florida and Mississippi.
Yeah.
And we want to do the same thing in Kentucky.
Call us right now, 893-2444, and we'll get you this petition out. And call us, and we'll get you the video and everything. Ed, thanks a lot. We're running out of time.
Right.
God bless you, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.
Okay.
Do you know why these people are out here protesting?
Yes, to hold accountable the IRS, which absolutely needs to happen.
And are you in favor of what they're doing?
Absolutely.
And you're with them?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
110%.
what do you say about the IRS? Should we get rid of them and get a fair tax or flat tax?
I think that we should just do what's fair and what's right, and people shouldn't get away with things like that. So we should
Okay,
just
well,
hold people accountable.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.